Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Farmer. I am the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ film festival. This is our 37th season of presenting stories for, by, and about our community. We have some amazing programming this year. One of our favorites is a documentary called Striking with Pride, United at the Coalface. I'm going to read a brief description, and then we're going to meet the director. Between London Pride 1984 and 1985, an unlikely alliance was forged between the gay men and lesbians of London and the striking miners of South Wales. Everyone loves a good love story, and this is one of the most unexpected and uplifting love stories ever. Not between two people, but between two communities who, seemingly worlds apart, found common cause and compassion for each other in the face of immense challenges and changed the course of history for queer people in the UK, made famous by the film Pride 10 years ago. The director is Ashley Francis Roy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Jim. I'm so happy that the film can be part of the festival and be seen by everyone in Atlanta. Thank you.
We're so happy. Well, what made you want to make this?
I was invited to look at the documentary once some of the team had already started kind of developing it, and I think that team had kind of realized that there hadn't been a documentary told about this story. They'd all seen the film Pride, and then couldn't quite understand why there hadn't been a documentary telling the real story because that film was so amazing and everyone loved it. And so they started to investigate it and they asked me to come in and have a look at it as well and start meeting some of the real people. And we contacted those in LGSM and just like very quickly, I thought that they were wonderful people. They were people who were like amazing characters, who were incredibly political, warm. They'd spent their whole lives fighting for what they believed in. And it felt really obvious to us that there should be a film about this.
Yeah.
I personally had seen the film Pride when I was a young person. I had just finished university. I was kind of a gay man just out the closet. And that film Pride, I feel like it was the first time that there was a film that was in the mainstream, that was a queer, positive film that you watched and wanted to kind of share with your mum as well as like your friends. And so I remember it being a very impactful film for me. And so the opportunity to come in and tell the real story with the real people was amazing. It was an opportunity I couldn't miss.
I'm I'm just so fascinated at how these two communities came together because they are quite different. But can you sort of talk about how they came together and the significance of them, uniting and fighting for the a common cause?
Yeah, of course. The context for this story is the miners' strike in 1984 in the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
which is one of the biggest workers' disputes that this country has ever seen. It lasted for a year, so that's a huge amount of people out on strike, not working for a whole year. It's a long time. That's a whole year of their lives without money, without being paid. And there was a kind of really kind of savage fight between them and their employer and the government. People really wanted them to win, but unfortunately, in the end, they didn't. But there was a sense in the country that you were either on their side or not, and the people that were on their side were really kind of active in their support and would go out and raise money for them. And in London, a group of young queer people saw Margaret Thatcher, who was the prime minister of the country at the time, and saw a person who was attacking not just the miners but everyone else, and that if she could win against the miners, she could potentially continue uh, to change and have a big effect on the lives of other people in a way which they thought was really negative. And so they had to do something. And what they did was really simple. They just went out on the street, raised money, and sent it to people. And they chose a community at random. This one happened to be in South Wales, which is on the kind of west of the country. Uh, Wales has a very strong tradition with mining. They sent them the money, not really expecting anything in return. But then what happened was really beautiful. At the beginning of the like really meaningful connection.
Exactly. Can you talk about how this changed the course of history for queer people in the UK?
Of course, yeah. So I think at the time that the United Kingdom was very homophobic, like
Mm.
the rest of the world. If you were openly gay on the streets, you were at risk of getting attacked or beaten up. it was only recently that laws against being gay had changed. It was the age of consent was still different for queer people compared to straight people. So it's still a very hard time to be gay in this country, and it didn't seem that that was changing. Like the political parties didn't seem very interested in making a difference. Even the left, the Labour Party in the UK, didn't really have it on its agenda. But it was the support that lesbians and gays support the miners gave the miners during the strike was really significant because what that meant was that you had one of the biggest unions, the National Union of Mine Workers, which was a very traditional old union made up of big, burly, straight white men who were really well known for being homophobic and
Yeah.
conservative and traditional. All of a sudden, they had changed. They had been supported in this big way by a group of queer people from London in Wales, but that spread out amongst those people, and in a way, it really mattered.
Mhm.
And so the next year, after the strike had finished, when a campaign was brought to the Labour Party's conference trying to improve gay rights, the National Union of Mine Workers supported it. They voted in favour of it. That motion had been brought several times before and failed, and it was because of the miners that it finally got through and got onto the Labour Party's kind of agenda and onto the table. And from that point, really, you can see a kind of big change in queer rights in the country. And it was slow; it didn't happen immediately. The 80s were continued to be hard for queer people. The AIDS crisis took over. In this country, there was a law introduced called Section 28, which banned teachers from talking about homosexuality in schools. So the 80s continued to be difficult, but that change in 85, that was down to the miners and LGSM,
Mhm.
did pave way for lots of change in legislation, including the equalization of the age of consent, gay marriage, changes in the Gender Recognition Act, which is all to do with the kind of laws and that people who are trans and non-binary can access. So it was really significant. And so like for queer people like me today, the what LGSM did, even though it was a very simple thing, has
Mhm.
absolutely shaped my ability to be who I am.
That's great. Did you and your team were you able to acquire pretty much all the interviews that you set out to do? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we spoke to almost everybody who was involved in any way and who is still alive, and filmed with lots of people who wanted to be involved. I think like you know, I was surprised at how even 40 years later, for lots of the people who are in the film, it's still a very emotional thing for them. You'd
Yeah.
have thought that they would have wrapped it up and kind of got over it, but for
Yeah.
lots of them, there were still big feelings and a lot of sadness. Ended. They lost ultimately, even though they'd made these new friends. They lost the strike,
Mhm.
and the 80s, as I've said, continued to be really hard. So it was really hard for some of them to come to us and talk about it. And I think the film Pride, as brilliant as it was, is a movie, a story. It kind of romanticizes some of the truth. And
Mhm.
so in our film, we're confronting some of the hardships and struggle in a bigger way. And we're really grateful to the people in the film for coming and being honest and willing to be open with us about some of that struggle.
I love the framing here, how you have a drag queen sharing this to younger audiences. When I was watching this, I thought to myself, this could never happen in the United States. I mean, this could not happen. But I mean, I thought it was just an ingenious idea. But how did you all come up with that concept?
Thank you. It happened really naturally. Really as a director, I'm just interested in finding warm, inviting ways to bring people into the film, and I wanted to have something like fun to start the film really. And I thought about a drag queen and kids, and it also felt like a really good way of making this. We've just spoken about the impact this story had on queer people today.
Yeah.
What better way of showing that than getting a group of young people to come and understand for themselves how
Yeah.
this has shaped them, that it's not just a historical story, but it's relevant to them today. So it felt just that was the main reason, but then it instantly felt like it was at the nub of lots of really important things, like the drag storytime protests
Yeah.
in America that have been really bad. In this country, there've been fewer, but still, I never really understood what was going on here. Like when I was a child, my family would take me to a pantomime at Christmas, and there'd be drag queens in the pantomime. And I'd come home from home from school on the television. There'd be this show presented by Lily Savage, who was a drag queen. So drag just seemed like it was part of like our culture, not even gay culture. It was just like a part
Yeah.
of culture. So the idea now that drag is like somehow dangerous for kids or controversial at all, like, I just really don't get it. And so it felt like this device would explore that in a little bit and explore that actually the queer rights that we have today are maybe not as secure as we thought. And I feel like drag story time is at the nub, isn't it, of like uh, uh, um, people who are trans and the trans community and the issues that the trans community are facing, right? That's like really the issue that the queer are facing today, that trans people are being demonized and not kind of seen and not given the rights that they deserve. And drag story time, I feel like, is just a nub of that. So yeah, like I think what it does is show that the rights that LGSM won are not safe.
Yeah.
And here's an example of how that could start to break down if we're not careful. But hopefully, it is also just like a way of grounding the story as an important, urgent, present day story. Like what happened is relevant for us now. We can learn a lesson from it that will help us fight kind of the current battles.
So where is this documentary right now in terms of getting it out? Are you still pretty early in your festival run, or where are you now?
So we've the film had a broadcast on Sky TV in the UK earlier this summer, which is great. And then we're kind of we had a great summer showing the film at different kind of Pride festivals across the UK. And that was really nice to be able to share it with just different queer communities across the country, including in Portrush in Northern Ireland, which is the place where Mark Ashton in the film, he grew up there. And it was beautiful to take it there because they have a really strong, wonderful queer community who really look up to this person who was from there, and they really need that. Like, there's a lot of homophobia, Christian
Mhm.
homophobia in that place, and so the film really meant a lot to them. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of sharing it. Really, we've got some more festivals coming up, and yeah, it's always like such a joy to get it out there and see people who are touched by it. Like, it means a lot.
Exactly. So what are you working on next?
I am doing a couple of little projects at the moment. I've been working on a project with the community of the Grenfell fire in the UK. The Grenfell fire was a huge fire that struck a residential tower block in 2017. And we've made a little film with some of the survivors of that community. And I'm working on another feature doc, which is a really crazy story about a man who's making a crazy film. That's all I can say for now.
That's great. The film is Striking with Pride, United at the Coalface. It debuts at Out on Film Sunday, October the 6th, 5 p.m. at Outfront Theater Company, followed by our streaming week as well. The director is Ashley Francis Roy. Thank you so much for submitting this film to us, sharing it with us, and I cannot wait to share this with the audience. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. So nice to talk to you. Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Bye.